I'm sorry, I'm here. Hi. Good morning, good evening. Hi everybody. You can see me now. Hi. I'm waiting for my dog to leave. Yep, she left. You can hear me well, can you? Can hear you well. I have my coffee right here. I'm sorry for the delay. For the ones who don't know, I wasn't able to stream yesterday because the electrician was here, and yeah, there were some burnt cables in the wall still, and they had to be removed. And I wasn't notified that the electrician is gonna come yesterday, so I couldn't even notify you because I didn't know about that. I just had to, okay, stop everything, turn down the electricity, and he will just do his job. Okay, fine, I guess. Three things? What three things do you have right now? One is gaming, one is me. What is the last one? But yeah, let's lower this music. This is my intro music right now. It is Tales of Fantasia Because Down, by the way, if you are looking for this music. But yeah, we are here. It took some time for me to find where we left off. I remember this line. She gained control of her body, and then some. The only problem was it came at the expense of her mind. Another friend have a movie going in the background. What kind of movie are you watching? I'm interested. But yeah, we are here for chapter 20. The last, I hope that's gonna be last, but I started this much earlier because we still have half of the chapter. And Featherwind was operating on Starving, who had her plot armor removed during the operation, so she was basically defenseless against dark magic, which seems came at a cost. You don't leave her defenseless. You messed up, Featherwind. And through the 9 months that he was operating, he didn't know what happened in the outside as well. So, a lot of things. A loud one. A loud movie. What a cliffhanger to leave it on. And especially after that having a non-stream stream. It was so bad. But yeah, that's the usual cliffhanger stuff that usually happens. You stop at the right time. But yeah, are we ready for what happened to Starving? Because obviously she recovered, we just don't know how. I actually don't know what kind of music should I choose for this, but let's start. Because I don't know how much time we have. I'm gonna go to work in the afternoon, so let's just simply start and continue. I'm not sure this is good for this. We need some darker theme at this point. Thundering Sky. Nope. It's the hardest time when you don't know the music that you have. There we go. As I said earlier, I don't know the songs either. I just saw the titles. And this is called Defiance. And obviously it starts with a battle team. Oh my god. But sure, let's keep this. Why not? Okay. Padavin's eyes popped open when we heard a savage scream outside of the tent. He rolled into sitting position, fully convinced a new monster has found its way to them. Alarmed, he charged out the front tent flap. Wow. He charged out the front tent flap. He was intent on the exit that he didn't even notice his fiancée was missing from the operating table, or the fact that the tent flap was already unzipped. Outside, it was overcast, nighttime, and raining very fiercely. They were still parked on a ledge where Stormy initially crashed after getting hit by a giant's club. Looking over the ledge, Featherwind was a bit alarmed to see a raging river flowing through this canyon. It was quite a bit higher than he expected. That river had not been there yesterday. The weather in ancient times of Equestria was really quite unpredictable. He supposed he might have noticed if he went outside and checked. His communion with the sky normally gave him decent warnings if he bothered to pay attention, but lately he had been extremely exhausted. He looked up, considering to use his powers to clear the weather, but later shook his head. He could do it, but it might take him a while. Featherwind had to fight nature pretty hard to make severe change to it that it didn't want to do, and right now, he was too tired to exert that much effort. Besides, so far he failed to locate the source of Savage scream outside. Whatever it was, it might threaten his fiancée, and he could not let that happen, while she remained in such a delicate state. And he didn't realize that it was his fiancée that probably screamed. In fact, he was so far out of it that he failed to dodge several rocks that tumbled down on him when he had plenty of warning. They collided with his hooves and wildly tripped him over. As he fell, he was bashed several more times by other tumbling rocks. That knocked him off the ledge entirely, but fortunately by then, he recovered his senses enough to lighten his gravity and lift himself telekinetically. By that point, he realized that whatever caused that rock slide was further up the mountain, so he floated upwards to investigate. Along the way, up he ignited his horn with silver light. That helped him to illuminate many nearby falling raindrops pouring all around him, though he could occasionally see much more during bright lightning flashes. He could have erected a force barrier to protect himself from driving rain, but his concentration was difficult enough as it was. It was more by instinct than anything else that caused him to dodge a huge rock that was chucked directly at him. A savage roar was his only warning before that point. Featherwind barely dodged around that rock. In his perception, his adrenaline kicked in enough to make that exact moment seem slow down in time. It was enough to notice he dodged that rock by mere centimeters, and it did hit him soaking wet mane. It was a perfect dodge. After dodging the attack, he finally located his adversary. When he did, he became convinced that his opponent was indeed empowered by dark magic. He did not consult the red crystal to double check. It seemed he did not need to. What he saw before him was a dark, shadowy pony lit up by many red glowing veins, and the eyes glowed menacingly red in the darkness. The glowing veins were not constant. There were tiny intermittent breaks in them, which traveled across his body, and that in turn showed the path of blood circulation more clearly than he had ever seen it before. The creature gazed upon him savagely. Featherwind instantly knew that his opponent was very powerful, so he knew right off the bat it was unwise to hold his power back. He underestimated that Cyclops, after all, That was not a mistake he would willingly make again. Now this will be a mistake if he uses his full force at this point. He saw the dark figure crouch low, seemingly to get ready to pounce. Some of the glowing red veins disappeared for some reason, as if concealed behind something that did not glow in the light. What the heck is going on around here? Starbreeze wondered aloud, at the edge of the seat. In the past, Featherwind whipped his horn upwards, and called upon the red crystal. A ring of enchanted red crystal shot out of the earth, and surrounded this dark pony, imprisoning it from within. A side effect of this prison was the fact that it would magically teleport those who attempted to teleport out of it to reverse the flow of the wow. That's gonna be a long sentence right here. The side effect of this prison was the fact that it would magically teleport those who attempted to teleport out of it to reverse the flow of that energy in order to return them right back into the prison 1 second after escaping it. Not that he expected the tactic from this particular opponent anyway. It's the same crystal magic that Samurai used later on. It was simply a side effect of the spell that Crystal Sage has taught him. Obviously, because it's the same magic that he knows. With the spell in place and the creature secured with reasonable confidence, Featherwind intended to examine his opponent in a safer tactical position. But he was quite alarmed when the beauty I said beauty instead of beast. When the beast suddenly shattered right through one side of the crystal prison, as if the prison was made of fragile cracked glass. The creature flew right at Featherwind and seized his throat. Due to the momentum, they were both driven straight into fast-flowing river. Along the way down, the glowy silver horn got cut off due to his loss of concentration. That's why he didn't see who the attacker is. Featherwind thrashed and fled in panic in the river, but all of his physical efforts were in vain. Whatever this creature was, it would not let go, relentlessly as it continued to choke him even as they both started to drown. As Featherwind fought to regain his senses, he realized he was far stronger with his magic compared to his physical body, but that situation made it extremely difficult to concentrate. He had to fight back a lot of panic to gather enough concentration to cast even the simplest of spells, and in the end, that's all he managed to accomplish. He managed to tear himself out of the river targetedly and crash into another ledge just outside the raging river, but the black and red glowing creature continued to hold on and choke him. The grip was extremely strong as well. He feared his lungs were already crushed and he could never breathe again. Featherwind started to black out at that point, which made it much too difficult to concentrate on a spell. The savage red eyes bored over him menacingly. He realized, and not for the first time in his life, he was very likely to die now. He did not have much strength to begin with. This creature was choking the life out of him, and he was in more feeble position, which had no leverage. It was serious effort just to tie himself out of the river, but now what? The creature just wouldn't relent. Now, there is two options. Either he makes her unconscious, or she actually realized, oh, I'm still here, you are still my lover, and I don't wanna hurt you. That's the two possible things. Then suddenly the creature froze after a brief jolt. The eyes and veins stopped glowing a second later. During the brief lightning flash, Featherwind just barely enough time to catch a glimpse of Stormwing falling out of him, and behind her was Vision, who knocked Stormwing out with precise and skilled chop to the neck. That's close to what I suggested. Knocking her unconscious. I thought it would be him, but I forgot that Vision is there, because Vision said that she would not interfere, right? Well, she had to. Relax. Vision said smoothly as she bent over a bit. Your answers are coming soon. That was all he could do. Featherwind's consciousness faded away. Mom? Starbreeze exclaimed in intense disbelief. She was the monster who attacked you that night? Why would she do that? I thought she loved you, engaged to be married to you. She swore to protect you. Why in the house would she ever attack you? Federman paused as he grinned at the irony of this, then said to his daughter, "Okay, calm down. That's too calm." Federman paused as he grinned at the irony of this, then said to his daughter, "Relax, your answers are coming soon." Starbase looked taken aback. "What's that you told me Vision said to you? Wait!" Her eyes widened in further shock. Did she know that this conversation would take place in the far distant future? Is she still talking to me as well? Maybe. She is a skilled oracle. Federman reminded his daughter. Oh! Starbase gasped in amazement, then applied the hoof to her head, then made an explosive sound effect as the hoof burst away from her head. Federman took a moment to withdraw the chuckle of amusement. When he recovered himself, he went on. That is what I wanted to know as well. In fact, the question lingered in my mind so strongly that it followed me to unconsciousness. Crystal Sage pulled me from the edge of my unconsciousness and into the red crystal. He had me clear my head inside the virtual environment with a cup of jasmine tea. Well, a virtual cup of tea at any rate. When my head cleared enough, he asked me if I was well enough to listen. When I confirmed that I was, he gave me an explanation of what happened. He was quick. There we go. He was quick to point out that he wasn't sure, but one thing he did know was that my fiance's spinal cord was effectively replaced with a magical item, and the magical item has functions that she was not prepared to face yet. Crystal was one of the best conductors of magical energy, and her body, like that any mother pony of our age, had natural magical energy within it. None of us would have a cutie mark if that wasn't the case. He also explained that for the longest time, about 9 months, the energy in her body accumulated within the crystal we were acting in her body, and it had no outlet until the project was completed. And the prosthetic crystal spine was finally communicating with the rest of her muscles and nervous system. With all those months of accumulated energy, it poured into her body and empowered it all at once. Unaccustomed to that overflow of energy, it made her mind go savage. It simulated an adrenaline rush, but it was far too more powerful. I asked him if he was aware that this could happen all along. In return, he admitted that the thought had occurred to him, while it came along with hundreds of other scenarios that hadn't happened. Since one of those many possible scenarios was death, it seemed like we safely dodged that line for now. He then pointed out that this situation could actually work to our advantage, but only if my fiancé learned to control this new power. The energy within the crystal spine would constantly regenerate for as long as she lived, just like such energy accumulates in a unicorn, which they could release using their horns and an outlet. This process was similar, except the energy was localized around the spine and had only one outlet, the rest of her internal body. He said that in this case, my fiancée gained the magical ability to augment her body to super pony proportions, but she needed to learn how to manage the explosive emotions that came along with it. Even more plot. More. It is basically an exoskeleton. He also warned that enhanced power came with enhanced cost. Her body was not designed to endure such explosive power, that it would inevitably exhaust her quickly, maybe even age her drastically. With the prism armor worn, however, she could more quickly recover from energy burnout, and perhaps even endure higher outputs of magical augmentation. He reminded me this was just a theory. Just a game theory. And recommended that I pass it along to Vision. One way or another, he suspected she already knew what was happening to Starving. From Vision's perspective, this had already occurred quite a long time ago. It actually kind of reminds me of One for All. So it can basically break her body. Makes sense. She has to get accustomed to it before using it. So that we will probably have a training montage for her. Also, she did not use her muscles for 9 months already. So actually, she's lucky she didn't. Well, I was gonna say she didn't break any bones, but yeah, most of her bones are switched with Krista, or only the spine. In this moment, she got magically augmented. Yeah, that makes sense. So basically, Featherwind is lucky that she was not moving for 9 months, because if she still had her muscles from back then, and that was augmented, she would snap her neck in a second. All that was left to do was write down history all over again. Krista Sage was also pointed out that Vision cared for Starving enough to ensure she would not normally be this calm or indifferent to Starving's suffering during those 4 processes, unless she knew things would work out in the end somehow. She advised me to take that as a positive sign and move on with my life. The still might have weakened her, despite that, she was still strong enough to shatter through the crystal prison. Yes, this is why I think that Starving was still there at some in the back of her head, even though she was in a savage state that she couldn't think to reason at all. She was attacking everybody and every pony around them. She still kinda remembered and pulled her power back when attacking Featherwind. Unconsciously. I thank Crystal Sage deeply from the bottom of my heart for aiding us in this most difficult journey. In return, he pointed out that he had to endure difficult trials in his own past as well, and he had others he cared about that helped him through such times. He was just returning the favor, which later on I could return the favor by helping out those who helped him in the past. Onward the circle continued. Stubby smiled fondly as she said, "Godfather is such an awesome pony." "Yes, he is," Featherwind agreed. "I can tell you how often I looked up to him. Even his mere presence can give me comfort. Sometimes it feels I could absorb his inner sand through osmosis, and without drawing it from him. I try to learn from his example. Life does not always make that easy, but he would be the first to point out that trials like this are just a chance for the strong to get stronger. By enduring it, living through it, and learning from it, we can move on better than we were before. What doesn't kill you makes you stronger." Stubby's fond smile shifted to proud grin as she said, "Sounds like something he would say." Pretty much as I expected. Vision did not have a lick of surprise in her face when I told her about Crystal Sage's theory on what happened to Starving. Instead, she said, "So, you finally know. Now you can move on with the next phase of your life." Vision regarded Featherwind's general direction. I told you that you would get your answers soon. I followed that up with some advice. From this point forward, you have done all you can usefully do here. What you have done to help her recover, I couldn't do without tapping into the exorbitant powers. From now on, your paths should diverge again. I will stay with her and help guide her through the process of mastering her emotions during her magical searches. I mastered the meditation, so I know it well enough to teach it. The next step is going to take a long time for her to master. Indeed, too long. Why, you were here helping her to recover. 9 months has passed outside its tent. 9 months for the villains who accepted the Dark Star's blessing to advance their own agendas, and 9 months for the Dark Star to advance itself. 9 months to the world. The world stood by with no worthy defenders at all, or at least none who are prepared for this kind of threat. Magic is relatively new in this world, in this era, and dark magic is especially new. There are no ancestors or text writings here that teaches these creatures how to rule for this properly. It's all up to you. Knowledge on dark magic wasn't common in my time either, Fatherwind reminded. But at least you are aware of its existence and have heard of methods to counter it. These creatures have not. Vision returned. Also, you do have access to those who have prior experience with this kind of phenomenon. Crystal Sage, Fatherwind realized. Don't let this knowledge go to waste, Vision advised. It came to him at a great cost in his own life. If you use it wisely, his knowledge may help you save the entire world and the empire he loves so dearly. What should I do? Liked. You mean this? He still loves it. What should I do? Fatherwind asked. How should I proceed? That is up to you, Vision said as she turned her head away. Oh, don't give me that. Fatherwind spat. Not now. Not after we have come so far together. Give me some advice as a friend, or better yet, tell me what you would do in my place. My choices are my own. What I would do may not necessarily be what you would do, or even be able to do. Vision turned her back in his direction. But as a friend, I would recommend re-examining your options, considering what worked so far, and what could use improvement. Examine all your resources. You have used it to fullest potential, or could you do more? Oh, okay. I like your like. Thank you, by the way. Even though my voicing is horrible right now, and my reading as well. My resources? Fatherwind reflected, taken aback. I have me, you, Crystal Sage, and Stormwing. Is that all? Vision checked, then gave her friend a dry look. Come on, Fatherwind, you can do better than that. Think, my friend. Your intellect and knowledge is one of your strongest assets. That and your heart. Fatherwind paused for a while, in thought, and tentatively said, the other creatures in this time period? Vision looked up. That's an interesting proposal. There are many creatures on this planet, and it sure takes a lot to save an entire planet. The Dark Star is certainly willing to consider them potential resources. It would also sure love it if you ignore them. Because unity brings harmony, Fatherwind realized. Oh, please. Fatherwind rolled her milky bright eyes in front of Fatherwind's general direction. You knew that lesson a long time ago. Sets can occasionally make us forget what we already know, however, no matter how useful that knowledge may be. Of course. Why didn't I think of it before? Fatherwind berated himself. I just told you why. Stupid Fatherwind. Fatherwind got up and paced around in thought. Now you are speaking of yourself in third person? You are picking up some of the doctor's habits. Vision pointed out. Or Trixie's habits, right? I try to do everything by myself. Fatherwind went on. Me and Stormwing both. He glanced at Stormwing's unconscious body for a moment, then looked away as he resumed pacing. I did it because it's one of the strongest resources I have at my disposal, and one I can trust. It's difficult to convince me to put other creatures in harm's way if I have access to a better option. Oh. What the heck? They are pressing the horn for no reason. I'm sorry. Someone is just doing this with the horn all the time. I don't know if you could hear that, but that was really making me lose all the concentration I had. But I can't be everywhere at once. If I see one area, then I leave some other area exposed. No, I can't hear it. Then that's good. It was really disturbing. The dark star is attacking the whole planet all at once. It's calling out a dark offer in the shadows to any creature evil enough to be tempted by its offer. More than one creature will answer its call. Even if I were to somehow eliminate every single supervillain in my way at the moment, some other creature will rise and take its place until I finally deal with the source of the problem. But to do that, I need access to the resources way out of my league right now. This is a piece of dark power that has the ability to consume the entire sun. I'm not even a bug compared to that. Vision sat down calmly and drank some warm milk, while she listened to her friend ramble. As long as he was on the right track, she didn't need to say anything. But a bug can form a swarm. Father Vision even further realized as he looked over to Vision. Where one is powerless, many could triumph. That depends, Vision cautioned. On what? Father Vision asked. The vision of the group, Vision asked. A group is comprised of many individuals. Each one has their own goals, strengths, and weaknesses in life. It can be a complicated thing to unite them all to a singular purpose. Like it or not, for good and for ill, we are a great deal more complicated than a typical bug. Survival is a pretty strong and basic motivation, Father Vision pointed out. This is true, Vision agreed, and took another sip of a drink. Father Vision resumed pacing. I just need to get them to realize that their survival is at stake. To get them to see, we all need to work together to defeat an enemy too formidable for any of us to defeat alone. Not even I can do that. No, you just have to show them that there is a crystal right there. Father Vision paused and sighed as he looked up. I did not really do them any favors by trying to take care of all their problems on my own. A superhero that sweeps in and saves the day all the time can create lazy citizens in their wake. What happens when the next villain comes in and tries to ruin the day? The only way to defend the whole planet at once is for us all to chip in and defend it together. Oh! Vision winced in disgust. The Darkstar would hate you for talking like that. Because it could work. Father Vision exclaimed back at her. Vision shrugged. You will get no argument from me, she said, and took another sip of her warm milk. Father Vision shifted his eyes, then faced towards the exit of the tent with a reserved and focused look on his face. Then that's what I will do. From now on, I won't just concentrate on my own strength. From now on, I will concentrate on making everyone else stronger. Because only together we can defeat an evil of this magnitude. So, you have decided then? Vision checked. Father Vision nodded firmly. I have. Then, be well, my friend. Go defy the impossible. Again, it's what you are good at. Father Vision grinned at Vision as he said, Maybe, that should have been my kitty mark. Vision half shrugged as she said, From a certain point of view, it already does say that. Who before you has ever heard of flying unicorn, let alone one that can do it real well? Thank you, my friend, for everything. Father Vision's heartfelt appreciation. For a blind pony, you see things awfully clearly. I tend to think of it as a different perspective, Vision said. From time to time, such things can be helpful to others who are too stuck in their own ways. Featherwind trotted to the exit and opened it telekinetically. Wow, I struggle with that word. Telekinetically. Telekinetically. Again. Featherwind trotted to the exit and opened it telekinetically. But before he stepped outside, he requested something to Vision, without looking back at her this time. Take care of her, alright? I'm counting on you. I said I will, so I will. Vision promised. What the heck is this music? It's the underground way. Now go, you have a word to say. Featherwind laughed. From that day on, I focused my efforts on a drastically different tactic. I returned to Pandora to report my findings as well as my intentions. It turned out that General Slacosa had already heard of some of my exploits, so he wasn't quite as rude to me this time. The only complaint he had to ask, why did I stop? I told him of my new plan and explained him why I had it. I told him I would focus on training a new breed of soldiers to combat this new threat. I told him I would explain what they had to face to the best of my ability, and I would help them to prepare for it. I said I would help improve their technology as well, with the crystal science I learned from the Crystal Sage. I didn't mention his name specifically, or even mention Crystal Sage at all, only that I had useful knowledge on this regard. I told them that positive emotions can help combat negative ones. Since dark magic is fed by negative emotions, it stood to reason that positive emotions could counter dark magic. I said that crystals in particular are great receptacles for both positive and negative energy. If we learn to harness positive emotions in crystals, we could use them both as a shield and weapon against the darkness. General Slacosa was initially wary of my theories. Most of it went over his head after all. What I was proposing was a bit too difficult a concept to grasp because it defied his habits a bit too radically. But at least I can say he was not a stupid guy. Even if he could not fully understand it, he could say the same thing about dark magic that was spreading across the world. It was hard to argue against something that, when you understand it so poorly, you couldn't propose a counter argument. And at a certain point, I think he just shrugged and trusted the one pony who claimed to be an expert to a degree. The situation was growing desperate, and he wanted his options expanded as soon as possible. Normally, he was the type of dinosaur who would study his opponent carefully before striking. To do otherwise was to rush him blind, and no self-respecting commanding officer was that foolish. In this case, however, he had a very difficult time studying his opponent. The Darkstar in particular was more like an idea rather than an opponent he could study. Point to say, aha! He is leaning hard on his right leg. If I aim my attacks at that, I should be able to cripple him more effectively. I would probably shoot an arrow on his knee, and he would be no more an adventurer anymore. But this opponent was more like studying an emotion, one he had poor grasp on. General Slacosa usually avoided emotions entirely if he could, instead typically favoring logical tactics. The strategy was failing him in this because the opponent was too intangible. Intuition and feelings were actually the key to success in this case. Awaki, on the other hoof, had a better time understanding my explanations. I thank my lucky stars that Awaki was a philosopher too. Apparently, he was a sage of many kinds. In this case, he had the ability to grasp the concept I was proposing. Positive feelings counter negative ones. You sound pretty awake. I'm not awake. He thought of this in terms of a magnet. Except an axial magnet's opposite polarity. Wow. Except an axial magnet's opposite polarity attracts rather than repels. It still demonstrated a powerful relationship. He was on board with my suggestions. While General Saklosa had the official power of the city of Panjura, Awaki was a member of high respect in society. Creatures trusted him to understand what many others could not. So when he said, "I trust this horse and I think we should move forward with this plan," every other creature just gave an unsure shrug and basically said, "Okay, if you say so, you are the expert." What I think bothered General Saklosa the most about my plan was to militarize and train the horses of the city. But even he admitted they needed an army to help combat this threat, and it was probably better to risk the lives of expendable slaves than the superior master race, especially since the horse race was far more available in this case. Every creature that depended on that word for life had a motive to at least stand. Wow. Every creature that depended on that word for life had a motive to at least stand out of my way, if not outright join my cause. One of the things that confused General Saklosa was one of my tactics in training the horses for combat. I did focus some of the official stuff that he would understand, such as crawling, galloping, climbing, push-ups, that sort of thing, but another thing I focused on was emphasis in bonding with the fellow team. I encouraged them to talk to each other about themselves and their goals. In doing so, I also encouraged them to form goals in the first place. Slaves were not accustomed to that, but since that is the natural state of life, they adjusted rather quickly. You can probably hear when I stumble upon easy words as well. So I am not fully awake. Also, the horses enjoyed my training on multiple levels. I could just brush it off as being kindred species, but the truth was it was much more than that. They always wanted freedom, and they craved empowerment. Military training provided that empowerment, so it made it much easier for them to endure harsh training accordingly. Part of them has to do with your speed of reading. Is it too fast or is it too slow? I usually speak too fast. Some people say it. I speak too fast in Hungarian as well. Moreover, they were motivated to defend their planet from an invading sickness. Not just for the sake of themselves or their loved ones, but for the sake of every future generation to follow. Talk fast enough that anything could become a tongue twister. I don't think it's too fast, but it sometimes trips you up. Not sometimes, it's always trips me up. The last time was just that much of a threat, so they thought of it in those terms. This threat put absolutely everything they cared about at risk, and that only fueled their motivation to fight it even further. Motivation, I knew, was key to success here. Positive emotion was necessary power source to counter the darkness. And I also told them how to harness that energy into crystals in order to use them later to combat this darkness more directly. Give me a second, by the way. You probably can't see too much more, but I can. I let some natural light into the room, so I just don't watch the monitor light, which is not really good for your eyes. Oh, the other way around. Yeah, there is a window right there, and I just pulled the curtains out. I had some help in multiple fronts, some from within and some from without. Civilians had the knowledge of military discipline and tactics, but theirs were created to take maximum advantage of their species. Civilians had an excellent sense of smell. For example, they could leap quite far in single bound. Their equipment as well was geared to take advantage of what they could do. It occurred to me, as I watched them train, that it would be a good idea for the two races to work together. Actually, 3 races. The other crew were also willing to do their part. Most of the other crew were more focused on academic pursuits, and that was okay, but for those willing, more physical training was also available. The ability to fly, for example, was an obvious asset in their corner. With all 3 combined, it started to remind me of home, when 3 breeds of ponies, and thinking of that made me feel homesick. This wasn't exactly my word, but the cool elements of it were there, buried beneath the sense of like buried treasure. I figured I would only have to nurture it properly for it to bloom into a beautiful flower. Carnivores, omnivores, and herbivores working side by side to help defend their planet. Quite likely for the first time. While it seemed strange to me at first, the more I think about it, the more I felt right. Harmony is achieved when balance is achieved and every creature pitches in and has a chance to feel included. That in turn empowers them all together, and only together could we work to defeat that force that actually trying to destroy life and harmony. Just a second. Internally, the Crystal Sage was a good guy too. He had some experiences in military forces before as well. At first, I was surprised to hear this. That did not sound like a profession that was natural to fit for a Crystal Sage or Crystaller. He explained that he had a very long life, however, longer than what was natural for most ponies. During that time, he had built a society from the ground up, and that society depended upon many branches to survive, including the military. By necessity, he was forced to wear many hats at one time or another. He had many hats. He wore them at the same time. It's a training montage. It was actually one of the reasons why he was so dangerous as a villain. His knowledge in military tactics could have helped him conquer the world, and he almost did at one time. I said Stormwing needed training montage, not him. Progress, I would say, was slow and steady. One of the encouraging things I encountered was a large amount of volunteers. Some even came from distant lands to participate. Some skills of my initial group grew beyond those who came later. I used the skills of the initial group to help train newer recruits. Onward, the cycle spiraled. During that time, I kept an eye out for any special standouts, and eventually, I did spot some. Military was not the only thing I was focusing on. Like I said earlier, crystal science and morality were also important aspects. I know it sounds strange to hear, but I actually encouraged arts and theater in order to weaponize it. And to think, I once dismissed entertainment as irrelevant, but as I grew up and explored the workings of the universe more, I grew far wiser in my journey, and that helped me to understand the necessity of things I once rejected. That's right, it was my intention to weaponize friendship itself. That sounds like a supervillain would do, something a supervillain might do. One way to do that was to lift up the spirits of all creatures in the world. The lessons Crystal Sage gave me taught me how the unity spirit of a whole society could be used as a benefit of all, especially if that energy had a container to put it in, which could later be drawn upon as needed. Each of the three species involved all had their own individual tastes, but with my encouragement, they eventually found some common ground. It was my intent for them to start new traditions together, and encourage them to see the value of each other's perspective. What the blend of genres created was indeed a work of art, and I enjoyed it very much to see its flower. Not to mention, it gave me some ideas for my own poetry. I wrote about it a lot, at least in Crystal Sage Virtual Library, and since I personally had some talent in this affair, I also contributed some, which later helped to inspire the others. As for the crystal science, I don't mean to sound sexist here. Oh. But the stallions of the horses truly were better suited to physical endeavors, so it was natural fit for them to focus on military pursuits. The mares, on the other hand, were naturally more empathetic, so I encouraged them to pursue crystal science, and carefully explained to them how it was every bit as important. It took far less encouragement than I initially expected. They were even confused why I tried so hard to convince them. Like the quotes, the mares were just as eager for empowerment, to be useful and to help save the world. But they also had a general tendency to not want their hooves not get their hooves too dirty. It seemed to me that they were more naturally attracted to magic as well. Go figure. Come to think of it, I wonder if I'm the one responsible for females' natural tendency to be attracted to pretty stones. Rarity. This was basically what happened when I encouraged them to pursue crystal science. It fit them like a horseshoe on the hoof. It took even less explanation for me to get them competent in their field than it was for the quotes to get competent in physical arts. I think they would say that the males were naturally more gifted in everything to begin with. Naturally, Strawberries agreed smugly. You will get no argument from me on that account. That I assure you. Of course. That had been said, with a grin. Actually, my primary theory with the mass grew in their profession, so fast that the fact that I encouraged them to use their emotions in pursuit of this art. For them to do that also meant getting more in touch with their intuition, and that sharpened instinct allowed them to intuit themselves before I had the chance to explaining things. In fact, I kind of think I actually slowed things down by attempting to get them to understand the logistics of science behind the practice. Instead, most of the mass prefer to think of the crystals like a new toy. Oh no, oh no. Don't use them as toys. If you know what I mean. They wanted to experiment and play with it on their own. Me and my stupid mind thinking of something different what you mean. And I observed they had a tendency to learn faster when they were out to pursue this in their own way, at their own pace. Tendencies don't fit the entire bill, however. There were actually some maths who were very interested in the extreme science behind the art. Curiosity is emotion too, so gentle that's naturally more emotional can just as easily embrace the emotion as well. Preaching to the How do you say that word? I know that word, but I never heard anyone say it.
Preaching to the choir.
Choir, okay, choir. Preaching to the choir, father. Strawberries waved her hooves above her head back and forth. Then she paused as she gave a teasing grin to her father, and she said, Seems your time spent as mayor was not wasted upon you. That helped you to intuit truths most quotes struggle to understand, and the truth is this: girls are simply better at everything. Yes, well, where would we be without you? Benjamin countered with a sheepish grin. Exactly. Strawberries realized something. Hey, can you teach me crystal magic? Huh, It took you long enough to ask. Had I been upset with the roll of his eyes? I expected you asked that question several paragraphs ago. Well, I'm just captivated by your story. So about it, can you? Certainly. Featherwind popped the top of her head with his hoof. But how are you? Let me finish my story first, alright? Don't worry, it will only last 2 more weeks. What other ideas might inspire you to pursue later on? Actually, this is... Wait, Quill, isn't this the reason of the story? That this is a family legacy. I'm gonna tell you the story of it, and you will have to decide if you want to pursue it. You will pursue it, but I will have to... He definitely has to teach it to her at some point. So it's basically giving her a taste what is coming. Samus grinned mischievously. The raw crew, both genders this time, were also a natural fit for crystal science. To my surprise, that wasn't as true for Silurians. And the reason that surprised me was they were more accustomed to dealing with this kind of science longer. They were first to greedily tap into the power of starlight dust. For example, it took me a while to realize that was also their problem. From the prologue itself, he said he wanted to give his daughter an informed decision when it comes to duties of the crystal. Yup. And she has to decide if she wants to pursue it as well. Or they have to make another child. Because somebody at some point has to get the crystal. At some point. Some pony with the... with the blood. Let's just say it like that. Silurians actually had a problem expressing their emotions, and again that applied to both genders. That observation led me to conclude that carnivores were naturally more competitive than other kinds of species, and that meant remaining on their guard. According to their instincts, revealing emotions gives an advantage to a potential enemy, and the predator tends to think of every species as a potential enemy first, and the friend second, if ever. She said no? Oops. We got to make another brother or sister for her then, and do it in a hurry. They are not that old at this point, so they have time. I don't think they are that old, from what I heard from the prologue. They even regarded each other with a suspicion. Learning to trust was a slow process for them. I learned that firsthoof. I might even say losing their trust could be quick as well. That was just a theory though. I never dared to laboratory test their patience like that. That sounded dangerous. On the other hoof, Silurians were also natural pack hunters. Despite their innate suspicion, they also knew that odds of winning anything was improved by doing it as a group. That was enough to set aside their differences, just enough to work towards the common goal. As such, Silurians were quite industrious. In terms of using positive emotions to war themselves, however, was quite a bold step for them. Being as emotionally distant as they normally were, I wish I could say that made them more resistant to the dark side as well, but that simply wasn't true. They actually do have emotions, even if they don't show it as much, and it has a tendency to be attracted to the darker emotions, I'm sorry to say. That said, they didn't want to die either, and if surviving, changing and adapting, they were at least willing to explore the idea. I would take anything I could get. On the whole, they were actually a very fascinating race, very different from ponies I've grown up with, and there were very logical reasons for it. Understanding all the underpinnings of the situation and how it evolved into complex nuances of their society was fascinating to explore more fully. Sometimes I wished there were more of them to explore. It would have made my job a lot harder, but in exchange, I would get to learn more as well. Oh well. So much for lost opportunities. They actually were useful in crystal science to a point. They knew how to cut gems around each other, so it could network more easily. Emotionally, however, was where they drew the line, so I left them to make the gems and set them up. The other two species could charge them instead. Then, one day, I made an amazing discovery. When another pony, Celeste done it! Horses! We made an important discovery. This discovery was made by one of my more promising students in crystal science, male named Shyla. She started out like a really average horse of the female variety, but something clicked with her when I started teaching her crystal science. She fell upon it like magnet attracted to its opposite polarity. Oh no, she's gonna get her critic mark. She made several discoveries on her own when she was given the time and space to make her own experience. One of the most important ones she discovered was the manipulation of raw magical energy. The first unicorn had been posed there and observed his daughter wide their eyes. He smiled at her, but he went on before she could ask too many questions. In a way, Shyla was the first unicorn in the world had ever known. She was particularly gifted with fire magic. For some reason, that was a natural element for her, and quite frankly it stood out in her personality most abundantly. Vibrant, passionate, warm, could brighten up the whole room, but could also be terrifying when she was angry. It was she who first experimented with crystal wands, and used them as a kind of surrogate horn. At that point, it occurred to me that was what I had been doing with the red crystals for years. I used the crystal like a second horn, and in doing so, I used the energy the stone was charged with. In this case, it was the crystal sage's magic and critic mark talent, which had an affinity for earth magic. That actually wasn't a natural fit for me, far from it. It was quite difficult to master this crystal, despite my bloodline, but I still managed it after a great effort was made. Obviously, because earth magic is the exact opposite of air magic. I could actually just pull up a Hunter x Hunter chart right here. If you watched Hunter x Hunter or read it, you know what I mean. If you have an affinity for something, you probably won't be having too much problem with something that's close to it, but you will have a lot of problem which is downright the opposite of it. Like Aang had trouble with learning airbending. Yeah, that was a struggle for him. Actually, I still I still hate what they did with the first Airbender, or the last Airbender, I'm sorry, the movie. It had the potential, but that was a horrible movie. And the actual series, the cartoons, which is not anime, for some reason, were actually pretty great. Shyla, on the other hoof, intuited a natural connection with ruby gems in particular, and by charging her emotions into it, she discovered she could also unleash the energy she stored within the crystal one to perform magical feats. Look at the movie, I saw it in theaters. She cast a spell, literally. An earth pony cast a spell by Celestia. This was amazing discovery. It's gonna be hard to break it to you, but she is first of all not a pony. Second of all, you have seen nature magic before. So it's not that big of a discovery, isn't it? You can use your wind powers too, without using a horn. So this is basically the first natural magic. In the process, I might have accidentally discovered the true origins of the unicorns. I couldn't say for sure if all police could do this, but some of them had a stronger affinity for magic than others. Again, I found this to be particularly common among females. Anyway, Shaila's discovery was a major game changer. Crystal Sage was quite impressed with the discovery as well, though less impressed than I would have suspected. It was as if part of him already knew. In any case, I suddenly realized that I had the potential not only to train military personnel, but spellcasters as well. Now that Crystal Sage was alerted to this discovery, he was again the first to have accurate theory as to why. He told me he knew a long time ago that crystals could both store and radiate magic. As such, they were a perfect medium for the creation of magical items. In this case, Shaila imbued some of her own essence into the crystal wand, then used that same connection to unleash it. He also surmised that her regular contact with solar dust, one of the mediums to enchant crystals, imparted some of his magic within her, and from that point on, it grew within her. But she lacked an outlet for that innate growing magical talent until now. Now, because we are talking about wands, this has to be something like, oh yeah, this one is better for you and this one is not good for you. We know that Shayla is fond of rubies most of the time, and she is prone to use fire magic. So probably every pony who is a spellcaster here have their own wands, and if it's broken, they will lose their powers. Let's just say it like that. They will not be able to cast magic without it. Or will they? At some point, it will be just as common to cast magic without those wands as with those wands. Shayla was also the first to get the kitty mark. For all I know, she might have been the first to get one in the entire world. In her case, it was a ruby wand that seemed to be spinning around the diagonal axis. At the same time, the wand was surrounded with whirlwind of fire. She asked me what this mark represented, and told her all that I knew. Many other ponies grew fascinated with this discovery, and Featherwind trailed off, then gave an irritated sigh in frustration. You know what? I'm just gonna call them ponies from now on, okay? They call themselves horses, but they are descendants, so they are ponies too. Got a problem with that? Yes! Yes! Yes, we have a problem with that. No, sir. Savis replied with a quick shake of her head, and slightly spoke look in her eyes. Good. Now let's move on. Other ponies who noticed this grew interested in to discover the cutie mark too, if possible. I started to suspect that those that can awaken cutie mark talent had regular contact with starlight dust. It might be not the only possible source. If you think about it, magic is already part of us. We really would be not sentient without it. It's how we got this far in the first place. Starlight dust already caused us to evolve, and the potential for magic has been innate to us ever since. Like my uncle told me, emotion is the fuel for magic. The pony is more inclined to express emotion. We're also more inclined to discover their magical talents. Shayla didn't really need concentration to access fire magic. It was just a natural part of her personality, as the cutie mark clearly attested to. It's like my connection with air. It comes to me naturally, so naturally that I don't even need to tap into internal reserves for magic, though I still could. Shelley's connection with fire magic was very similar. All she had to do was feel intense emotion, and she could burn anything she wanted. So she is very dangerous. She could even cause globes of fire to hover in midair. I had never seen to use her practical magic. If I'm to be honest, like telekinesis, but when it came to affinity for her element, she didn't need any training or concentration. If she wanted it, she did it. It was as simple as that. Reckless practice of magic that my father would shudder at, but it worked. My Celestia, it worked so well! When she cast the spell, she also exhibited an aura color around her wand. In this case, it was deep orange. More than half of me expected red, to be honest, considering she was using a ruby wand as a medium. Go figure, but yeah, she actually had an aura color when she cast magic through her wand, crystal wand. Tape on it her forehead, and she was pretty much a unicorn right there. This led Crystal Sage to another hypothesis. He suggested that I tell the others test her aura affinity with many different color crystal gems, one for each color their magical aura could possibly be. He suggested making a single contraption composed of multiple gemstones fused together, but not blended. Then have them channel energy at it and see which gem responds to them the most. Once that was done and affinity was established, he told me to tell them to make a wand of the type of gem that responded to them the most. As I said, they need the perfect gem. They need to find what kind of wand they would be preferred with. This actually looks like probably as an optometrist machine that you can check. Oh, this lens is good for you. No, not this lens, not this lens, and they can check what type of eye you have. But instead, this is for magic. So Crystal Sage agreed with you. Yep. He also suggested that from now on, do not formalize the second step too much. Let them invent the exact size and shape of the wand. If the intuition could serve as an accurate guide, they would discover the perfect form of the wand about as easily as they might discover the potential cutie mark. For some it might come easy, and for others they might have to try very hard. His idea gave me something to work with, so I passed on the suggestion. My students found this prospect very exciting. I did as well, and it was also useful knowledge. Finally, I was not the only spellcaster in the game. Eventually, I could make a whole team of spellcasters if this kept up. I might get them to join the military after all, but in a different capacity. I don't know what the Silurians would say about this. They are definitely not happy about this, because the slaves are now very much heavily equipped with firepower. Let's just say it like that. Literally. Similar to actual unicorns, Crystal Sage pointed out that if they did actually discover a way to cast spells, the type of spells most aligned with their cutie mark talent would be the easiest to discover and the fastest to develop. But they might be used to save the world. That's true. And obviously they agreed that they would let them go free after the world is saved. So they are not gonna be slaves anymore. As such, it was unlikely that we would discover another pony as gifted with fire magic as Shyla was. Instead, they were more likely to gravitate towards something else, something that fit their personality as a pony. That was that was perfectly fine for me. Very talents had more versatility in any situation as long as they worked together. What happened after that reminded me of something my uncle once taught me years ago. So the slaves are earning their freedom then. In exchange, they are saving the civilians from death or corruption. Makes sense. He said what is considered impossible may be difficult because of perception of society, but once that perception changes, it becomes easier for others to replicate. Truth be told, these ponies were introduced to cutie marks first because Stormwing and I, but Shiner told them that any pony could discover the mark. When the belief was instilled into their hearts, they were more naturally gravitated towards it. Only a week later, a second pony awoke as cutie mark. It was in the military this time. His name was Tibbons, and he was a natural born archer. He could outshoot any other archer in the squad. Mind you, the talent only recently came into their hooves. The Slayers don't bother and even polish their sleeves for touching their weapons, but times were changing. Luckily for them, in your story, the ponies have the grips on the ends of their hooves, right? They can actually grab things with their hooves. So I guess these can do the same, these horses. Because otherwise it would be really hard to be an archer without magic. Recall, I told you I kept an eye out for any standouts among my trainers. Tibbons was one of them. I could tell them from the first moment he got the bow that somehow he was more complete. That said, I've seen ponies use their mouses a lot too. Yeah, but if you are aiming like this, do I have a bow around here? Why would I have a bow? Why am I searching for a bow? There's no bow in my room. Anything that could resemble a bow, I don't care. If you have the bow right here and you are using your mouse, it's gonna be hard to aim, right? Well, to tell the truth, no. That's actually not that hard because you are in level with the arrow. So I guess it makes sense that you could aim like that. Okay, I take it back. It's possible. They just have short bows. They can't use long bows. That's all. He made mistakes at first. They all did, but Tibbons learned faster from those mistakes than any of the other ponies on the squad then. One day, he landed a bullseye on every single target, one by one. Ponies actually used the bow in the show during the Equestrian Games. Yes, they did. I remember that. I don't know how they did that, I don't remember that. But... wait, was it that the bow was actually on a stand? And they just used the... Yeah, I think it was like the bow was actually on a stand. And they didn't have to hold the bow itself. They just have to aim and pull the... What is it called? A second. The string! That's what I wanted to say. The string. They just have to pull the bow string. He was just in perfect sync with his true power. He said he became every single arrow that he let fly, and he was only guiding himself to his target. Right after that, he regained his cutie mark. A target with an arrow sticking right in the bullseye. He didn't even need to look at his cutie mark. He described it perfectly without even looking at it. He even got the colors right. This was phenomenal. I was witnessing the dawn of cutie mark talents for the first time in this world's known history. Hector was the third who got his cutie mark talent. In this case, it was a ruby axe chopping into wood. I will give you 3 guesses what his talent was. Just kidding. I said that you have to already knew he had a talent for chopping wood. It was his taskmaster's ordered him to do as slave, since he seemed so adept at it before. Now that he was freed, he discovered the primary tool of his trade has potential military applications as well. Hector was large, brawny pony, even by their standards. He was giant, and the swing of his axe without an E had a lot of power to it. Do anybody say it like X? Yeah, that's actually... I just never saw it before. Okay. Think of his axe had a lot of power to it. He was both natural born warrior and lumberjack. Being brawny was actually quite useful in both professions. Then we finally have Tarsius. How to best describe him? He was a white stallion that reminded me of a lot of your mother. If I'm honest, if he was male, more white colored than brown, and a pony instead of Pegasus, wait. And an ass pony instead of Pegasus. It was a spirit though that reminded me of your mother the most. Tarsius was natural born leader, and he was also strong beard. He also had a strong beard to protect those he cared about. Actually, I'll take that one step further by mentioning he also had a pet peeve against bullies. So there were definitely bullies in the military dream as well. I couldn't wait this guy to meet my fiancée, though a small part of me was afraid they could actually get along with each other a little too well. I tried to dismiss that by reminding myself of Stan Wing and I had been through too much together, and Tarsius' natural sense of honor would have kept him from pursuing the relationship too seriously anyway. He was loyal to his friends to the core, so he would never dare to do anything that would even hint at betrayal if he was ever with. Anyway, his cutie mark was a shield with a spear jutting out. Wow, with a spear jutting out one end of it. Sound familiar? Well, except for the spear part and lack of wings or heart, but yeah, he had a shield too, just like your mother. That didn't just reflect his tools of choice, it reflected his personality too. And there you have it. I had my team necessary to track down and eliminate Plague once and for all. I was only missing one member of the team. Your mother! It took your mother 2 years before she was ready to join me and my cause again. Until then, I was busy training the next generation of ponies in so many regards. Warfare, magical research, and the arts. A lot of other developments happened during this time as well. Perhaps they were distantly inspired by me, but not always caused by me. One change promoted another, after all. Once the snowball effect started, it just kept getting bigger as it rolled down the hill. Problems continued to accumulate outside of the walls of Panjora. I couldn't afford to keep my best ponies locked up with me forever. I was training them for a reason. So I saw it through that they fulfilled their ultimate purpose. If they were going to help me fight to save the world, they were going to need to be willing to challenge the darkness that came with it. I wasn't dedicated to just hoofling the problem myself. Nor did I encourage the ponies I trained to take their training to their graves. It was the opposite of that. I encouraged them to lead by example. I encouraged them to teach others the meaning of courage by helping them find it within themselves. You really have learned a lot, father, Starby said proudly, then waved at her father to continue. So, we roamed the countryside as a unit. We started taking care of problems that plagued various villages, then left one recruit behind to help train the rest of the villagers how to defend themselves, only to later leave and rejoin the company. In each place, we led by example and taught them how to defend themselves. As these skills were passed on, our job became easier and easier. It left a message to other bullies out there that thought ponies were still easy targets. We were there to show others that was no longer true. Ponies were rising up and taking a stronger stance in the world. We weren't just prey anymore. We were the ones who would one day master our world. As we marched across the land, we sang a jolly tune and encouraged them to learn that as well. It was the tune that I learned with the Apple family. We are apples to the... That would have been hilarious if they did that. Sang didn't just come from the muscles. It came from within as well. Happiness and joy were our best weapons to keep the darkness at bay. Everyday kindness, from the one who gives a genuine compliment to the poor pony, who donates her last loaf of bread. These were the ponies that would help to forge the paradise our world eventually becomes. It's never perfect, but the effort yielded a lot more than empathetic heart. The story explains a lot. Yup. Now we have the first ponies. We can now call them ponies, because they have kitty marks. We made it clear that we were spreading a message of kindness, hope, courage, loyalty, generosity, and good old-fashioned joy. I'm only not aware of why they become much smaller through time, if they were horses. The only reason I can think of is interspecies relationships. If you know what I mean. We taught those we encountered just to pick up a stone and infuse it with feelings and appreciation for all that they had. We told them that it would be a tax for our services, and that we could actually send the pony around to collect these gratitude stones and to return them later. I am not kidding. I needed those energies to enchant the red crystal, and I needed to fuel our crystal projects back in Pandora. We were forging magical items with these positive feelings, and we became more prepared to facing even greater dark forces. The force accumulated, it built and built. Because the show is called My Little Pony. My Little Horses. The ponies who cooperated made other important discoveries. Those who used gratitude stones also discovered richer crops in their fields, medical problems in their bodies got reduced or eliminated entirely. Unusual coincidences happened on a daily basis that had 40 results, and they just felt better in general. This positive feedback gave them initiative to each other, and soon enough, we weren't the only ones spreading this message. Those we spoke to spoke to each other, and others, and so on. As the message continued to spread, it gave us more and more gratitude stones to collect our energy from. I have a question though. What did they do with the gratitude stones? They are collecting stones, okay. They are fusing the gratitude from the stone into the gem and the other gems that they have. What happens to the stone that they left? There are many stone pebbles in Pandora now. Music started getting more common in Pangea as well. I made sure to tip my head in gratitude to every pony I passed on the street that passed me with a jaunty tune on their lips. As a result of this, Darkstar showed signs of slowing down for the first time, but some of its agents also pushed back more aggressively. as he's desperate to fight this new trend. Once the edge is corrected, it is passed back to recharged. To be recharged. Okay. Wait, that was said earlier? Was it? Only to return them later? I thought to return those stones to Father Irwin, not to the recipient. Huh. Okay, it makes sense. Then it will be their own personal gratitude stone. They will probably engrave them that this is mine, this is mine, this is mine. Yeah, that's fine, only to return them later. Yeah, this is how I read it. We send the pony around to collect these stones to return them to me. This is how I read it. But yeah, it makes more sense if you say it like that. That return them data to the one who said it, who gave it to them. Okay, it's just me not realizing what it meant. One of them was Plague, and when he started to finally get more bored, my team and I started dealing with him once and for all. All he has to do right now is to send Shayla alone. Hi Plague! Fire! You are dead. That's all. That's all we have to do to Plague. Me, Shayla, T-Bones, Hector, and Tarsius formed the first vanguard against the most formidable forces of darkness the Darkstar could throw at us. They were all armed and armored with crystal equipment enchanted with protective positive energy. That sounds like if the forces of darkness, the Darkstar, sent, were armed. That made them more resistant to dark magic and its curses, and made their weapons hit with a lot more force if the target wielded or was composed of dark magic. I suggest... Hi Plague, I got bad news for you. You're fired. I suggest you should change this to V. Because after this sentence it sounds like the enemy is armored with crystal equipment, not us. But that would actually not mean that Featherwind is armored as well, which is probably not true. Huh. In our first true encounter with Plague, he had already affected the local town around him, and quite broadly. He entered a town full of screaming ponies, yelling at the top of their lungs in raw agony. We visibly saw worms burrow in and out of their hide, only to regenerate seconds later, after the worms dove back in their bodies. There was a crazed look in their eyes that begged for help and release from this suffering. And yet, they also did everything they could to spread the sickness. Featherwind took a moment to calm himself and release a long breath. Starbeast saw him shivering at this point. Well, I have a feeling that they did use fire magic on this, because that's the only thing that they could do. There was nothing we could do for them, other than slaying them with our ancient weapons. At least that worked. The worm workers were actually immune to normal weapons because their flesh would quickly regenerate from any standard attack, but attacking them with weapons blessed with positive energy, this enchanted to the cursed energy that empowered the worms that swam within them, and thereby permitted the host a peaceful death. After that, they became ordinary, harmless worms. The police became ordinary, harmless worms. Featherwind paused again, as he braced himself to announce another piece of painful news, then bravely pressed on. Yeah, this probably will be bad. Something that he will remember all his life. We had to slay young foes in this way. We had to slay infants in this way. Our spirits took a huge blow on that day. We continued to sing, but it was a strain to do so next to the horror we faced. Featherwind paused again as he pressed a shaking hoof to his forehead. Again, his daughter touched his lap gently and sympathetically. It was horrible. Featherwind said in a voice quivering in pain. So much death. So much innocent loss. They didn't deserve this. No creature does. Blake did not care about whom he hurt. No, I take it back. He did care. He enjoyed the suffering he wrought. Finally, though after wading through and killing so many innocent victims, we had our first encounter with Blake himself. He was a hunched over Silurian with a dirty rugged cloak draped over him, which concealed most of his features. He then got a rusty chain over the ground that had a ball attached to the end of it. As he swung it back and forth, a rain of worms kept pouring endlessly from it. It was far too many to be logical for such a tiny device. Clearly this was dark magic at work. When the opening to his hood lifted, I caught a glimpse of the evil glee in his eyes. I also saw bits of his face through the shadow of his hood for the first time, enough to realize he had no longer any scales on his face. Instead of that, he was entirely composed of jiggling swarm of worms, with wigged together in the basic shape of Silurian. He stared directly at me for a few seconds. The innocence I had to slay to get this far really rattled my nerves. So when I finally saw the villain himself, I conjured up Dark Storm high above with the intent to shower him with lightning bolt after lightning bolt. Featherwind, you should use a light storm instead of Dark Storm because dark is powering him. I know that's not what you mean, but I was not going to hold back against this horrible monster. My fury at him drove me nearly to the point of insanity, and he smiled at me triumphantly for that. He smiled because he had accomplished what he wanted. Before the lightning could rain down upon him, he suddenly broke apart as a swarm of worms that buried itself deep into the earth. Even his equipment morphed into a swarm of worms, like his ragged cloak or ball on a rusted chain. He burrowed through the earth in seconds. But in my desperate fury, I still rained lightning bolts over and over again in the spot he originally stood on, while I screamed at the top of my lungs until finally my friends literally slapped some sense into me. Tatos, damn me! He was genius! He got under my hide very hard, and very nearly did so for the rest of my team as well. They had to calm me down, and I knew it wasn't easy for them to do it either. Tarsius, however, stayed firm and helped the rest of his team to stay firm and regain their senses. He was a shield that never broke even under such enormous pressure. Blake struck a bad blow for us that day. A bad blow. I really wish I could say that was the last defeat we had under his nefarious claws, but no, this really meant serious business. Over and over again, he struck on innocent communities. With each failure we suffered at his claws, he undermined the confidence others had in us, and we had in ourselves. He also used misdirecting tactics as well by setting up a delayed plague bomb in one area, then left left it to infect the more distant land. While we were busy chasing red herring, he contaminated lakes and rivers, which infected every crop and community in its past line. This guy was too good. When he got serious, he proved how ill-equipped we were to deal with him. He spread the message of pain and terror, and he caused famine and sickness wherever he went by diminishing healthy food resources, which he knew further undermined both the strength of his opponents and his innocent victims. He no longer needed such things to live himself anymore, so it was no bother to him to take every food source across this country. Instead, misery itself became his new psychological food source, so I kept imagining he should have grown fat on his repeated victories. He corrupted all life in nature as well. The earth, the trees, the animals in the forest, the fish in the rivers, nothing was safe from him. We really had to get our act together and corner this despicable monster once and for all. And of course, the trash collectors are outside and they are making a lot of noise. That was very tricky. This was a slippery bastard. Every time we thought we had him cornered, he would just become a swarm of worms again and burrow into the earth. And he wasn't stupid enough to face us in an area. He could not do that like rocky terrain or a boat on a floating river. He is basically like Dracula. He can just turn into some other creatures and fly away or burrow into the ground at this point. Then finally we caught a lucky break when Starving joined the party, along with her newfound discipline, training, and what basically amounted to brand new superpower. She also had informed us that proved invaluable cornering Plague. The trick to dealing with him was going after something too precious for him to ignore. If he wanted to flee, he could do little to stop him. We could do little to stop him. Somehow, he was able to burrow through my enchanted crystal prison. I can't explain that. I really can't. Not even to this day. That thing was charged with positive energy because I summoned it from the red crystal, which is charged from a lot of stored positive energy. I have a feeling that the crystal prison did indeed damage him to burrow through it, but the fact he succeeded anyway proves just how powerful and determined he really was. On the other hoof, if we got him in a situation where he did not want to flee, then he would have to face us to the bitter end. To that end, Starving told us where his lair was. In that lair was a cauldron he kept on brewing. By drinking that brew, it helped him bait in his dark magical powers, and his powers were milk from a corrupted worm that the Dark Star offered him. The thing was, that worm was irreplaceable. Kill that, and he would lose all sorts of powers. Plague could not allow that to perish without a bitter fight to the end. That was his weakness. Obviously, it's his... Let's just say it's his heart. Plague could not allow that to perish without bitter fight to the end. That was his weakness. The downside to this strategy, however, that we would have to face him on his own turf when he was at his strongest. But at least, it also offered us our best chance at a Panama victory. Where was his lair, you wonder? Why, under the earth, of course. Where else would it be? The lair was located in a place that normally would require us to burrow through the earth, just like he did. If it weren't for my crystal magic, we would end up doing a lot of digging and facing a lot of funky worms along the way or down. Fortunately, we didn't have to. I created a crystal spike that stepped through the earth all the way into the underground tunnel. From there, I expanded the crystal to create my own safe tunnel in the middle of the crystal spike down into the earth. I even shaped the inferior of the crystal spike into stairs to make our otherwise very slanted journey down much easier. I also enchanted every member of my party, including Starving, with crystal armor. Didn't they already have the crystal armor? Basically, this spell is much like the crystalling in the Crystal Empire. It turns out Turns are hiding the crystalline substance, which is transparent and reflective. Oh, it's different crystal armor. The other crystal armor that they had was literal crystal armor. Now they have a crystal hide. Now we have the first crystal ponies in Equestria, or Pangea, sorry. The spell lasted for many hours at a time, during which we would not only be more resistant to physical blows, but magical curses as well. With that armor in place, the worms within this lair would have no vulnerable gap into every inch of our height, except for maybe worm summoned by Blake himself. Since he escaped one of my crystal prisons before, for some odd reason, there was no reason to suspect he couldn't penetrate our new armor as well, but we still had to risk facing him anyway, to have a shot at putting an end to him for good. This was our final push, and the last stand against the sinister villain, known as the Plague. And although we were related to the chance to end him for good, it was still a very hard fight. To begin with, we had to bring our own light with us. Our opponents didn't need it. Yes, I said opponents, for there were far more than one down in those tunnels. We also had to fight in tight corridors and twisting underground labyrinths, but my Earth Crystal gave us an advantage to finding his main lair. The closer we got to it, the more the crystal harmed. Since it was enchanted with so much positive energy, it reacted strongly to possess some abundant source of negative energy. Sorry. The stronger that negative energy was, the further it could be detected by the red crystal. So the red crystal was itself a sonic screwdriver at this point. We fought a bunch of worm fuckers along our way to the lair, but one difference about them was the fact that they were not screaming in agony. Instead, they commanded their full intelligence, and they were just as evil as their master they willingly served. They called themselves members of the cult of the worm, and they espoused the philosophy that everything must be consumed in rot and decay. They wielded filthy equipment that was rotting with sludge and worms. They exuded an awful stench that made it difficult to breathe. One of them seemed to have magical ability to summon more worms, including large worms that had yet more worms for blood. We fought our way through sticky and corrosive slime, through rivers of worms, through pungent fungi that burst out noxious gases. Clearly this was the kind of place the Dark Star has envisioned for our world. But we bravely fought on. Charlotte with balls of fire through the air and burned away the whole swarms of worms. She conjured fires of flame and giant balls of exploding fire. As she cast her spells, she waved and danced. For her, that was the best way to attune herself to her magic, and over time, other cosmic changes followed her body, along with her critical transformation. For instance, she grew a long red mane, the first of her kind to have a different color mane. Okay, now she's a pony. Hector wove his eggs back and forth, wading through 4 arms and driving back to members of the worm cult. Timon's arrows fired straight and true. Theseus defended his comrades with his shield, drew back evil with his enchanted spear, and emboldened us all with his words of courage. Stormwind was a warrior Pegasus, wearing prismatic armor that gave her nearly endless stamina, enchanted weapons, and occasionally she had explosive bursts of speed, or endurance, or strength, or sensory perception, or natural healing, or any or all of the above. Her crystal spine allowed her to enhance any part of her body attached to her spine, which was pretty much anything. The more magic she poured into an area of her body, the more it got enchanted. This tired her out quickly, but the armor compensated for that. I had no idea how useful it would be when I enchanted it like that. That was really fortunate for us. Unfortunately, the enchantment allowed her to burn off stamina faster than she could regenerate it. But depended how much she augmented herself, and of course the greater and greater the augmentation, the more magic it costs. Her store of magical energy she naturally generated as well, but not at accelerated rate. I found I could transfer my magic to her if I wanted to, however, or she could recharge her internal magic with crystals enchanted with storm so potential. I don't think this, however, needs to be here. It's either or however. These two together doesn't fit together, I don't think, at least. As for me, my weather control was not much use underground. At least, I had air to manipulate and create wind with. Beyond that, I had relied on a lot of training Crystal Sage gave me over the years. I created the Ruby Sword in midair and made it telekinetically, and occasionally morphed it into a shield to help defend my areas. That was cost efficient for me, since it did not cost me much magic to use telekinesis. I allowed the holy enchantment of the crystal to do most of the work for me. Physically, I may not be strong, but my magic aura is quite formidable. With telekinesis alone, I could match the strength of 100 strong ponies if I accepted enough magic into the effort. Shyla and I were also responsible for creating light in this darkness. And Sterling's prism armor was also effective for this in some regards. At last, in what felt like days later, we managed to penetrate Plague's main lair. We found him waiting for us within. He tried to taunt us with biting and cunning remarks. It was surprisingly effective. This guy did his homework and researched us enough to know what to say to get under each of our hides. But we still held firm, especially with Tassu's brave example leading our charge. We found our courage restored just by being near him, and even more effective when he spoke to us. We sang as we plunged ahead, fighting as one. I was amazed how quickly the battle ended. Plague put up quite a fight offensively, but in terms of defense, he didn't enter too many blows from our enchanted equipment and those spells. He endured far more than a normal Syrian could. I will say that much to his credit. We could have easily cleared over 20 normal Syrians with the number of blows we hit him with, but still, the main boss went down fairly easily, all things considered on our way to face him. No wonder he kept fleeing from us before, whenever we consulted him. With that done, we targeted the worm that originally empowered him. On to the point, Shyla finished it off with several massive fireballs blasting on it again and again. The giant world exploded into many smaller worms that had smaller worms inside of them. They tried to regenerate the massive body by connecting back together again, but fire was really the powerful weapon to finish off this corrupted creature for good. And she could do it from a safe distance too. With that done, we finally won our exhausting adventure. There may be other powerful villains to take this place someday, but at least on that day, we could hold our heads out high, as we said with a roar of triumph, that the plague of the world was no more at last. There we go. I well remember the actions of my friend after we broke out of the earth. I once again had to create a crystal tunnel out to the surface. Hector was the first to charge out with a roar of triumph. He then spun about and started bragging to his companions about his exploits as well as theirs. Shyla joined him in this. She too was very ready to brag about her exploits. Your mother collapsed on her back and eventually laughed out loud. She was just as grateful to be alive, I guess, and was grateful all of her friends survived this most harrowing adventure. Tibbons was fired and instantly took the high ground among the tops of the tree branches. He tore off some twigs and set to work crafting new arrows to replace the ones he lost. He was usually very serious, quiet and focused pony, and he was ready to aim at any other dark creature who would be coming to the plague's aid, probably. It was Tarsius' reaction I will never forget though. He stabbed his spear into the earth diagonally. He shifted his shield further up on his back. He slowly took his helmet off. He slowly took off his helmet and closed his eyes as he slowly lifted his face up to the sky. At first, he stood there for long, while in silence. I wondered what was going on through his head until he finally announced it. He then spouted out a long list. I was bewildered at first what he was speaking of until I eventually noticed that I was familiar with some of those names. Those names all I had one thing in common. They were victims slain by the plague, directly or indirectly. Eventually the rest of his companions noticed what he was saying. The group grew a respectful silence, for it became clear he was mourning the dead. His chant sounded almost like a prayer. It almost sounded musical. He lifted his voice up high into the heavens, as if willing the gates of heaven itself to open up and admit the creatures with the following list of names. Plague had many victims, so it was a long list of names, but apparently Tarsius committed them all to his memory in order to one day honor them. I realized he sealed every single name to his helmet, vowing never to forget them, vowing to lift their names to heavens when he finally delivered them justice. It was his intent to let them all know they could finally rest in peace. I realized as I regarded him with awe that this was the kind of pony legend was born from. Indeed, they called him Tarsius, paladin of the unbreakable shield ever since that day. A pony who never quit, a pony who never backed down, a pony who never gave up in despair. He always shouted words of courage to his friends and any creature he encountered. He proved that he would fight to the last drop of blood in his body. A pony who was always true to his word and his honor, just like Stormwing. At first glance, the next 5.5 years of me and your mom's times in ancient Equestria seemed, for the most part, positive. During that time, plague really was the first villain we had to deal with, and after its defeat, harmony started to settle in the ranks again. Actually, it was more than that. Your mother and I got to see the fascinating discoveries made by ponies and creatures we shared our lives with during that time. The silliest and marvelous technological advance for those ancient times. Far beyond that, far beyond what I expected before I arrived. But during my stay here, they made entirely new discoveries that started to push them in far more positive direction. The fact that evoking positive feelings became an issue of necessary survival helped them push things along. It was funny how the spread of ultimate evil also helped the cause of strong counter wave, while it did make some sense if you thought about it. For every high tide, there had to be a low tide, and the higher the tide, the lower the tide. One caused the other, and the push of the source of future Equestria raged on. It was unfortunate that the reasons all these positive discoveries were being made because of a negative reason. Sort of like sticking a weapon to our heads and while declaring, "Be friends or die!" Well, okay, if you say so, Mr. Demenzipans. But seriously, it was an honor to behold every creature lift each other up and share new ideas. One idea inspired another and another. This spread a positive revolution and marked a beginning of a new era for the world. No longer did it have to be a savage world if the creatures on it got the means and motivation to care for one another. Of course, the training continued, but not just in Pancho anymore. As time went on, our ideas spread to other communities, and they in turn taught others. As communication grew a higher priority among the various creatures, means to increase it also occurred. In some places, the civilians former technology started to be repaired. After all, if it worked so well before, why reinvent the wheel? If we repaired the crystal network then, not only did we gain the ability to spread information and communication, but we could also facilitate faster, done near instantaneous travel. If the teleport pads and the networking crystals it relied upon got repaired, then the city over 100 miles away could be only as far as the next teleport pad. Even without it, a new profession grew in the lands that sort of resembled mere carriers, except much fewer creatures were able to read or write, so instead the creatures were hired to travel across the land and verbally deliver a message from memory. Primitive, but it was a start. A series of torchbearers were also being constructed that could help deliver more simple messages, like danger was approaching. Since light can travel a vast distance, especially at night, others who saw it could light their own torch and pass on the message to the distant lands. I guess you got that from the Lord of the Rings? And so, the races come together and discuss solutions to various problems that they faced. While doing so, they completely ignored the differences because the minds were more focused on the task they faced. Bingo! It was very pleasant to see them come together, set aside their differences, and learn to work together. I was involved with some of those discussions, and it was because of that I learned what the real problem was. While we were busy rebuilding and revolutionizing society, the cold winter of the Dark Star continued to spread. The first sign was usually more indirect, like falling crops or sickness spreading. The second sign was dramatic drop in temperature. The third sign was a blizzard storm crashing into the area. Then the first and final sign was a black blizzard storm, which was snow made of frozen ash. When the first sign came, dark creatures usually came along with. Is it gonna be the Ice Age now? After the meteors dropped? Besides the life-sapping quad and corrupting eyes of the Black Blizzard, there were also unliving creatures that roamed with the winter storm and was therefore dubbed Winter Walkers. I cannot not see the influence of Game of Thrones here. The Black Blizzard was literally animating the dead as it traveled across the planet, and even during this ancient era, the dead far outnumbered the living. The Black Blizzard was continuing to spread, and faster. This was no single opponent, for any of us could just think the sword that, and hope for victory. It was way more devastating than that. As time went on, I think in the Age of Dinosaurs? What gave you that idea? So random of you! Do you think it's random of me? As time went on, it became harder and harder to ignore the fact we needed a solution to the Black Blizzard problem before it not only killed us, but also brings us back from the dead as animated servants of evil. And unlike Puppet Master's animated dolls made of shredded corpses, I had a feeling the spirits of the victims were trapped and tortured too, because some of those unliving servants proved sentient. This wasn't just a sacrilege to the dead, but this was an extreme threat to the living. We needed a plan, and eventually 8 years later, after I have this timeline, one finally occurred to me. I have to ask this. Are those winter walkers the frost walkers? Are they the first workers from this book? Which I still haven't read. I'm still at the first book, by the way. This is filled with pop culture references. Yes, I realized that. You may have noticed. Yeah, I might have noticed. That's true. It's so funny when this music is playing in the background and I'm talking about horrible creatures like the winter walkers. Yay! Winter walkers are coming! But yeah, at least the plague is dead. The plague is down. I don't know why Featherwind did nothing through this. Wait, how much time has passed since after they killed the plague? 7 years or something like that? 5.5. Next 5.5 years. What did he do in the 5.5 years? He did nothing. That's my only problem. He did not keep an eye on the Dark Star. I know he couldn't see too much of the Dark Star, but then again, he's doing the same as he did with Stormwing, but with Stormwing, he had a reason to keep an eye on Stormwing. Because he needed concentration for the operation. But here? No, he could just do that. Obviously, he was needed to help to repair the crystals, but this is definitely an important episode, an important chapter. He made the armor, he enchanted the spine of the Stormwing, chased other villains himself with Stormwing, and much of it was training. Yeah, but they killed Plague, and made sure that he could never come back. There was a long 9 months, and I have to be clear with you. I thought that Stormwing actually got caught in the darkness when you said that she lost her mind, but it was actually just an adrenaline rush, basically. I actually thought that the darkness got seeped into her because the armor was not on her at all. She was being imbued with a crystal spine and she was undefended. But I could have thought about that she couldn't have been taken by the darkness because they were in let's say they were in a Time Lord technology tent. I can see why you think that. And that's why I was like, oh, so they either knock her out or she would realize that it's her husband that she is actually strangling. Which probably she did at some point because, as I said, she was enchanted. Even though her muscles were deteriorated, she would have instantly snapped his neck if it wasn't for the realization, if she didn't hold back. Luckily, she has more and more plot armors now, so she is basically unkillable at this point. And yeah, the tent is like his own dimension, because moving the tent did not affect the stuff within. Yeah, that's why I was like, wait, the darkness cannot seep into the tent. Can it? And probably they would realize. Now Vision did not see anything. That's for sure. Because this was something that they needed to do on their own. But at least they defied the impossible again. They killed Plague. And they made sure that if the enemy is coming up with something again, they will be more defended. But obviously they came up with something, which is the Winter Walkers, who are impossible to kill. They are dead. They are already dead. Well, no, I guess they can be killed, but anything they kill will become a Winter Walker as well, so it's not something that you can outnumber, because the numbers are immeasurable, let's just say it like that. I have a feeling that anything that were dead before also became Winter Walkers. Enchanted weapons could probably take them down. I guess so. But it wouldn't be easy. What do you think of the development of society? Well, it definitely needed some development, because it was like just slavery. Now that they lost the slaves, they had to work together, and repairing the teleport pads and the network crystals is one of the best ideas that they could do. Maybe an arrow hitting them would maybe make them jolt for a brief moment. I have a feeling that hitting an arrow within their heart would not kill them either, because they don't need heart to move anymore. It's the pure dark energy that's moving them. The heart is not beating anymore. Oof. And yes, wait, just a second. Is the next chapter the one that I need a little bit of preparing? Like the next episode? To watch the next episode before? Or is it 27? I don't remember. Yes, animated that do not have a weak spot that they need to leave. Probably fire. Fire is the best against yes, it is. I'm gonna watch it tomorrow, by the way. So don't worry. It also means that episode 10 is gonna come out soon. Not today. Well, maybe today when I come home, but not now. But yeah, this was a long chapter. And the next will be even longer. Wow. Cool beans. I took a question, okay? Is there going to delay when you post it online or after you watch it? There's gonna be a delay, but not that big of a delay. I'm gonna change up how I'm gonna do this, and I'm gonna say have a video that is gonna be an update video where I'm gonna say everything what is gonna be changing. I'm gonna record it as well tomorrow, but that's gonna be going on instantly. I'm gonna collect my thoughts on that, of how I wanna convey it. But yeah, there's gonna be a change. Basically, I can tell you the gist of it right now. So basically, I will post the reaction video with basically a time code. That's gonna be the thing that where you can basically sync it up with the episode of your own, and there's gonna be a redirect as well. I'm also gonna post the original reaction as well and wait while it's gonna be available. But that one is gonna have how do I say it? The comments blocked. So every comment will be on the timestamped one. So as I said, I'm gonna collect my thoughts, so it's gonna be more understandable. You are likely gonna be like the next chapter. I don't know what it is gonna be about. I know it's gonna be something about the next episode, about episode 11. Yeah, it's basically that. But actually the video itself will be kinda invisible as well. And that's fun. But there's also gonna be a redirect for that. Yeah, it's basically what I do with I can show you this actually. It's actually like what I do with the Kakagurui. Do I have it here? Obviously I don't. Yeah, basically this. Obviously you can see it right now. You can barely see the size of it, of the actual video, and there is a timestamp on the middle, so you can skip it up. But there is also a redirect for it. So basically that is gonna be happening for that. But now I have around 2 hours left to get ready for work. That actually means I'm gonna switch to Twitch, if that's okay with you, because I haven't been able to stream Persona 5 for a long time. Yeah, that means I can post the reactions much sooner, and I can record more. It's gonna be much better for everyone. But yeah, next time is gonna be let's see. Next stream. Let me get my date. Friday. 2 days from now on. Is it okay with you? And I have to ask, is this starting time better for you, or is 9 AM better for you? Because both are possible for me. Okay, then it's gonna be the earlier one. I also should check the title of the next one. I brought some fans with me. Just to create the next one already. Oof. No, I have nothing. I have absolutely nothing for that. Even from the title. Especially with the title, I have nothing. There's gonna be some friends. Oh wait, I think I have something. Wait, no. The doctor can't come back, can he? At least not now. Because Plague was not the one who was interfering with the thing, it's the Dark Star. So, unless they deal with the Dark Star, the doctor can't come back. I don't know. It can be a lot of things. We can agree on that. Yeah, the Dark Star is driving away the TARDIS. I don't know. I have nothing. Other than the Doctor coming back, which is not possible at this point. So I guess I'm just gonna leave right now. If that's okay with you. Because until I stop, I can't make the new schedule for now. See you on Twitch. Okay. See you everybody, and I'm sorry for the big mispronunciations and the tongue stuttering that I have right now. It's not better than anything else, but hey. See you next time. Maybe probably at the next chapter of My Little Pony. So 2 days from now on, we will start the next episode, the next chapter. It's gonna be another 3 or 4 parter, I can tell you that. Because I saw it's pretty long. But yeah, see you next time. Bye bye.